We always make the most money, the most profit off of these items every single time. Hey, it's Don. Today I wanted to talk about our most profitable items we sell. What gets us the most money day after day after day, all the time. It always is our bread and butter, our biggest profit margin areas, and that is vintage. Now, it doesn't matter what you sell, but for us, vintage is always the best categories to sell in because I can do one thing with vintage that I can't do with almost anything else that we get our hands on, and that is get it in bulk. The only way to get your costs down where you're going to make a considerable amount of profit off of something is to be able to get it in bulk or dirt cheap all of the time. Now, I talk to a ton of different people. I've seen stores that pretty much sell anything you could imagine. Specialty stores, stores that just do video games, action figures, cards, comic books, you name it, there's a store that just sells that. Mike, somebody that I've talked to for quite some time, sells radio tubes. I know somebody who does matchbooks, magazines, you name it, there's somebody out there that specializes in those areas. Now, the biggest aspect, as I said, to do that is to be able to get it cheap. Now, we've sold clothing for many years of our reselling business. I sold books in mass quantity. We've done Amazon for quite some time. You got FBA, obviously. The bread and butter of these days is, again, what I can get in bulk. With clothing, I could never get it in bulk. There is no bins, Goodwill bins around here, so I can't do that option. It's 3 hours one way to get to one. Around here as well, there's very few thrift stores. Both Savers that we had here have closed down, so the amount of material that I can get like that is very limited. I don't have the opportunities. So for me, vintage worked out the best. For somebody else, you may be able to source clothing in a massive amount and get the cost down where you're paying $1 or less per unit, per piece of clothing. Now, I also look at the overall sale price of what I am going to sell. Our average sale price is almost $40 right now. That's a high number. I've talked to people who most of the sales they get, they're getting $5 or $10 profit at best. A lot of the clothing sellers that I have talked to are selling clothing for $15, $20 out the door with free shipping to get the sales made. They may have also paid $5, $6, $7, $8, $9, even $10 for a piece of clothing to get it from a thrift store or wherever else they're getting them at. So the margins are very slim on those sorts of items. We lived with those margins for many years when we did clothing. So the one thing that I looked into is how can I get my profit margins up? How can I increase the amount of money that I'm going to make per item that I sell? And there's only a few ways that that pans out. Wholesale is obviously one of the bigger ones. You can get wholesale and you buy enough product, 1,000 units, 5,000 units, whatever you can afford, the cost per unit goes down, hence your profit margins go up. So if I'm able to, say, buy from a picker or a specific type of antique auction, bulk quantity of something, 1,000 postcards, 5,000 records, 10,000 posters, movie posters, or photo stills, the cost is drastically cheap. A lot of people don't want to mess with going through those size of lots. They're not sure what to do with that much. They don't know or have the expertise to look through 5,000 records and eliminate 95, 96 or better % of them without having to look them up. So for us, again, the bulk aspect is why we do what we do, why we sell what we sell. If I could get bulk vintage high-end electronics, obviously I would try and sell those because the return on the investment on those could be horrendous. So you've got to look at it from every aspect. You may have that solid source for buying brand new shoes or used shoes. You may have an estate company that you deal with who can hook you up with things. Those are usually the best places, inside sources like that. Now, if you're new to this, it may take you some time to figure out what type of sourcing opportunities you may be missing right now. Most people do the random driving around. They're not targeted sourcing. Again, that's how most people start. If you're unable to expand from that, though, you're always going to be limited to what those specific places have that you always go to. I've looked outside the box. We've been able to find things in massive bulk quantity because of that. We source at places no one goes to or thinks about. Grocery stores, believe it or not, can be excellent places. The mall can be an excellent place to source, depending on what stores are in your mall. Flea markets are another key area that I can go to and buy in massive bulk from another dealer. Local auctions, again, another place I can buy in bulk. Church sales, believe it or not, I'm able to buy certain things in bulk. Sheet music's one of the best ones at a church sale. Local live auctions, I can get records. Businesses going under, that's another place to buy in bulk. If there's a jukebox company going under in Detroit, I'm there. Because many times they may have 50,000, 100,000, 45 records sitting in a warehouse somewhere that have been there for decades on decades. So again, thinking outside the box to figure out where you can get bulk. Bulk is the best aspect of doing this. It works that way as well with how we list on eBay. I list in bulk. I list as many listings as I can get up. We've got a big bulk amount of merchandise up. And again, all of that merchandise, I have pennies into each and every single item that I have up. I almost never pay more than $1 or $2 for anything. Now, I know that's hard to do in some areas, like clothing, as I said. But if you can dig around, there are areas, there are places you can get pretty much anything in bulk for dirt cheap. Now, I'm not disparaging one-offs at all, because I don't mind buying a one-off of anything. But when you can buy in bulk like that, you're usually buying like-to-like items, similar style items when you buy in bulk. And what that does is that increases the amount of items that one person will buy from you. So we usually get multi-item purchases from the majority of people who buy from us in vintage and collectible categories. They also return constantly. That's something I am unable to do in clothing, let's say. And if you're selling clothing and only making $5 or $10 profit per piece of clothing, and they're never going to come back to you, that's not a great model to work with, unless, again, you have volume. Volume rules the day. So if you can get volume in something and get the cost down, it doesn't matter what you sell. I'm constantly asked, what is the best thing I should be selling? What will get me the most money and be the easiest to mess with? Now, easiest usually isn't the best route to go. And that's because anybody can do it, because it is so easy. If it's a little harder to get into, you are going to knock off a whole bunch of people and get rid of a ton of your competition. So we've picked areas that most other people don't mess with. So if I go to an auction for something specific that we sell, usually I'm not bidding against anybody. I can get people to turn those sorts of items my way as well, because most other people aren't looking for them. It's a quick buck for somebody to give me a quick phone call and say, hey, I got this. I've got business cards we give out. I've got contact information I give out. We even give out a finder's fee. So if somebody turns me on to a good purchase, a good haul, I usually give them some cash. So it's a big bonus. So if somebody refers somebody to me, I'm fine with that. It's just another way to get those big bulk purchases. The bottom line is it all comes down to the cost of the items that you are selling. The lower the cost, the bigger the profit will be. Again, you've got to look into good items. If you're selling items that are only making $5 and $10 on average, and that's 95% of your store, it's not going to be a continual workable model. You're not going to be able to grind away without doing a ton of extra work. The more items you're selling for $5, maybe $10 profit, the more work you are putting into shipping those amounts of items out with little return on it. Your goal should always be to increase your profit margin from day one. Get everything at the lowest possible cost you can do. That's why I buy in bulk in everything. If I need boxes or supplies or anything, I try to buy in bulk. And if you yourself can't afford something in bulk, whether it be items to source or whether it be supplies, talk to some friends of yours who are resellers as well and go in jointly on something. That can work as well, and it can give you a bigger buying power. So when you're going out there, you'll be able to buy bigger lots of things to overall get your costs down. Cases of shipping tape, whatever it may be. If I can buy in bulk and get the cost down per label, per bag, poly sleeve, box, or whatever the case may be, I use that same model for every aspect of my business. And as I said, our best items are always the vintage items. The ones that people think are dirty, dingy, aren't going to carry much value. Now, I'm not saying to give up what you're selling now at all, so don't take that way. What I'm saying is start working in other items. At some point, you may figure out other items that you can get in bulk, and you won't have to do the one-offs or the random drives or any of that sort of thing. Get your costs in order. Look at your store and look at your profit margins. Compare your profit margins from category to category and figure out what gives you the most profits for the least amount of work. If you're not doing that, you're not looking at your numbers, you're not going to be able to improve that percentage and make more money. That's what this is all about, is bringing as much as you can to your bottom line. And the only way to do that is to know your numbers and get your costs down. But anyway, that's what I have for you today. Hopefully that gave you some ideas, some thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified if I post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell all your friends.
I've been hearing this other guy talk about his realistic home video football game. Well, I play real football, and I also play the new Atari Real Sports Football. And I love it, because I love real passing, real kicking, and especially sacking the quarterback all by myself. And who you gonna listen to? Some guy who just talks football? Or a nice guy like me who plays it?
New Real Sports Football, one in a series, only from Atari.